Previously on Unscripted.
There's Sunday and there's Monday, there's Tuesday and there's Wednesday, there's Thursday and there's Friday, and then there's Saturday.
Wow.
You're listening to Unscripted with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Okay, Skip, so today we're going to talk about Seinfeld-isms, which is a word that I made up. I think I made it up, and we'll get into what that means in a minute. But before we get to that, I have to make a correction from last week, or last episode, where I was talking about Jared Goff. And I had said that something about the most consecutive complete passes without throwing an interception. In fact, it was most consecutive passes thrown without an interception. So not necessarily complete passes, but still passes without an interception. And then, of course, after I said it, he proceeds to throw an interception in his very next game.
It was interesting because I was watching the game, and they as soon as he threw the interception, the announcer was like, "There goes the streak!" like it was. They knew about it.
But still, he's having an excellent season.
Well, they had a great game. They just played this week on Thursday, and he had a big game. So I think the Lions are not a joke anymore, which is, I mean, whether they're good or not, whether they're in contention or not, they're not a joke anymore. So that's a start. Right,
are they not undefeated and first place in their division?
No, I think they lost their first game.
Oh, okay. Okay, and the other thing I wanted to mention, tomorrow is the last day of the regular season for baseball. And
yes,
the San Francisco Giants yesterday or 2 days ago fired their manager, Gabe Kapler, which is not really a big deal, although I don't know why they didn't wait till the season was over. But I think he is the first manager to be fired this season. And the fact that it took until September 29th, is remarkable to me, because usually you see, 4, 5, 6 managers being fired halfway through the season.
But what's the point of firing him with 2 games left?
I don't know. I really don't know. You might as well let him finish the last 2 games. But
unless they knew that no managers were fired this year, so they wanted to make sure one was fired in season.
Maybe that was the reason. Who knows?
just to please you,
So, wondering, did we get any listener mail?
Mailbag.
We didn't get a lot of mail from our Marvelous Miss Maisel episode. I think it's kind of niche. You have to have watched the show. You have to have liked the show, right? So, I mean, it's maybe not for every single listener. We did get an interesting email from our good friend Jesse in Dallas, Texas. This is what he wrote. I agree that this is an amazing show, and I love the way the show wrapped up. The reason why Midge was unhappy with Susie is that the only reason Joel was involved with the mob is because Susie had placed Midge in a partnership with the mob. So he sacrificed himself to make sure that she was free and clear. I do think that with the success of both Susie and Midge, they did get more confident and become more arrogant, which is what you kind of mentioned. He actually, I don't know, did you know that Kevin Pollak, the actor who plays Moish, has a podcast all about the show?
I didn't know that, no, but now I'll look for it.
So apparently Jesse listens to it. He says, I hope you're listening to the Kevin Pollak podcast about the show. He's having great guests on. And in the latest episode, he answered a question that I sent in.
That's cool.
Yeah. So Jesse asked him a question about, because Kevin Pollak mentioned, what's the definition of a oneer? So it's a television or movie making technique. It's like when there's one camera following. There's just one long
I've seen
shot,
episodes of shows where they have no cuts and it's one scene. The whole episode is one scene.
Yeah. So apparently there's some Mrs. Maisel episodes where they use this technique. So Jesse was asking Kevin to clarify, and he did, which was really cool.
I don't remember any of those. I do remember seeing one of those in, I think it's called The Bear.
Oh, yeah. Oh, The Bear. My God. We're going to probably talk about The Bear in our season-ending episode where we talk about our favorite TV shows of the year. All right, but we didn't get a lot of mail, but we did get, I did ask ChatGPT a very, very good question. And
I'm curious to hear what you asked.
I asked it, what were the best scenes from the show The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
And it knew the answer?
Yeah, it gave me a whole bunch of great scenes. I'm not going to read all the description of what they did because it's a little bit too long, but these are These are the scenes that it gave me. So it says The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is a popular television series created by Amy Sherman Palladino, known for its witty humor, strong character development, and memorable scenes. While opinions on the best scenes may vary from person to person, here are some standout moments on the show. So Midge's stand-up debut, season 1, episode 1. I mean, obviously, like the first time she gets on stage. Midge's first official comedy performance, which is episode 2. Lenny Bruce encounter, various episodes. So this is what we mentioned too, right? Like anytime Lenny Bruce is in it, it's great. The Catskills vacation. I mean, it's not one scene. That's a whole half a season, basically.
Yeah.
Midge and Susie's road trip.
We mentioned that.
Yeah. Lenny Bruce arrest, season 3. And Midge's Carnegie Hall performance in season 4, the final ending, which is another one that we mentioned, right?
Wait a second. Midge's Carnegie Hall performance?
No, you're absolutely right. ChatGPT made a big mistake here. It's Lenny Bruce's Carnegie Hall performance.
Yeah, that was a very good episode.
So yeah, that's it for ChatGPT.
By the way you know if a show is really popular is if someone mentions the show in another show.
Oh, absolutely.
So I noticed, because I just started watching Ted Lasso, there's an episode of Ted Lasso where they mention The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of references to a lot of crazy stuff in Ted Lasso.
There is. I'm stunned because most of them are not even references to Apple shows. They're other shows.
Yeah.
On other platforms.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be right back after this to talk about Seinfeld-isms.
You're listening to Unscripted.
Are you taking a month-long vacation in the stratosphere and you know how hard it is to hold your breath? Are you the cosmic kid in full costume dress? You've got a nice little place in the podcast universe with Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is your podcast for all things Bruce Springsteen fandom. We discuss his music, we talk about his tour, and we also talk to fans of other musicians and share their story of their passion, their fandom, and the way that their favorite artist music makes them feel. Set Listing Bruce, a Bruce Springsteen fan podcast, is available wherever you find podcasts. Remember, there is magic in the night.
And now, back to Unscripted.
Okay, Skip, we're back.
So we bandied around some topics for this week, and we settled on a kind of different one for us, which you're calling, I mean, not you, we agreed on it, we're calling it Seinfeld-isms. And it's basically like, I also called it Seinfeld in real life. Like, obviously, anybody who's listened to us for, 284 previous episodes knows that we've mentioned Seinfeld often. In the early episodes, I used to throw in a lot of Seinfeld little sound clips and stuff. Like, I haven't done that for a while, but, obviously, anybody who knows us knows that this is a show we both really love. We're one of millions of people. Like, that doesn't set us apart, right? Seinfeld's one of the most popular comedies of all time. And one of the interesting things about Seinfeld is that there's so many words and terminology that Seinfeld either came up with or kind of just made popular that became used in like everyday life, right? Like these, like the term double dipping a chip, like you never heard of that before it was on the show. And now it's like, that's like probably in the dictionary,
It's a common expression.
Yeah. Same thing with like yada, yada, yada. Like I could go on, and I don't want to like ruin your list, but so we decided to do a topic of like Seinfeld expressions, but we kind of gave ourselves like a prerequisite there that we really wanted to be stuff that we actually say in real life. Things that I will find myself saying in everyday situations. I think you're going to do the same, right?
Yes, I all the ones on my list, I use them in normal conversation. Whether people understand what I'm saying or not is another story, because if you haven't watched Seinfeld, then you won't understand what I'm saying. But I don't use them in the same context as they were used in the show. And you'll understand when I get to, I'll explain.
Okay. So something interesting happened just a few days ago is that you texted me and you asked for an extension on your term paper.
Yes.
Basically, like we've been doing top 5 for the most part this whole year. And you're like, hey, I got a lot of honorable mentions. Do you think we can like extend the list to top 7? And I also had a million honorable mentions, so it's kind of easy. So we're going to do top 7 today. And I think we'll go through them like fairly quickly, so it's not going to really like change the length of the episode that much.
Right. And if you recall, when we did our favorite Seinfeld episodes of all time, we extended that episode to 10, I believe.
I think you're right, because it's very difficult. It's very difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and in fact, like when I was looking up like the expressions today, like doing a little research, like what episode they're from and everything, it's like most of the time I don't remember what episode they're from or what else was happening in the show sometimes, like it's sometimes I'm like, oh, he said that in this episode? Oh, okay. Like you'll see. Yeah.
I have no clue which episode these are from. I mean, there's one or two that I remember, but like I couldn't tell you it's from season 4, episode 12. I had no idea.
Yeah. And I actually have a few in my list that are recurring expressions, things that have been said in more than one episode, which I think you might have the same. Anyways.
Okay, let's get at it.
Number 7.
So I'm starting off at number 7 with something that is kind of like literally in the news this week. It's probably the biggest news in the whole world, which is the Taylor Swift showing up at the Kansas City Chiefs football game.
Right.
And now bear with me, because there is a very famous Seinfeld episode where Elaine becomes friends with George's fiancée, Susan. And George is very, very upset because his worlds are colliding.
Jerry, don't you see this world here? This is George's sanctuary. If Susan comes into contact with this world, his worlds collide. You know what happens then?
His friendship world with his group and his dating world with his fiance, and they're colliding, and he's not happy about it. And Jerry can't understand, and Kramer tries to explain to him, of course, his worlds are colliding. So anyways, my worlds are colliding literally in my household, because I'm a huge NFL fan. I follow everything about the NFL. And the other thing that happens in my household is Taylor Swift, because my daughter is a Taylor Swift encyclopedia. Like when I say she's a Swiftie, people are like, oh yeah, there's lots of Swift. She's next level, right? She's at the next level.
Next level.
Right? So my worlds are colliding. Like the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce thing was a perfect example of worlds colliding.
Okay, great. I'm wondering, before I even tell you what my first one is,
yeah,
how many do you think we're going to have the same?
4.
Okay. 4 is the over-under. Interesting. Okay.
Okay.
I think I agree with that number. Okay, so first for me is, hello, Newman.
Hello, Newman.
And so what I meant by, when I don't always use it in the same context, if I see someone who I haven't seen in a while, obviously I don't have any friends who are named Newman, but I might say, hello, Newman, even if the person's name isn't Newman. Sometimes I'll change it, and I'll actually put the person's real name in there. And again, if they've seen Seinfeld, they know what I'm saying. But otherwise, they'll look at me like I'm strange. Like, why are you talking that way?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Either they get it or they don't.
Exactly.
But you get it.
Yeah.
That's what's most important.
Yeah.
Right.
Number 6.
Number 6 for me is the best, Jerry. The best.
The best, Jerry. The best.
Now, this is a line that's was said in several episodes by Seinfeld's sort of, I don't want to call him his nemesis, but like another stand-up comedian who's actually no good, Kenny Bania. And he says the best, Jerry, the best, like many times in the show. But like the most famous one is when he gives Jerry a suit, and then, he says, now you have to take me out for dinner, and then like they talk what restaurant they want to go to. Oh, you got to go to Mendy's. It's the best, Jerry, the best. So literally anytime someone, like you can use this in everyday conversation. Anytime someone says, how was your day? Oh, it was the best. How was the movie? It was the best. It was the best, Jerry, the best. Like it's like I say it all the time. So.
Okay, so next one for me is sometimes if I'm playing sports, a team sport, or even let's say doubles tennis, and my teammate does something that they shouldn't have done, I'll just look at them and say, "No soup for you."
Very good. You know something? No soup for you! Come back 1 year!
Even though we're not having soup, we're playing a sport, but I'll just say, "No soup for you," because you screwed up that play.
It's like the no soup for you became like any kind of standard reprimand. Like that's it.
Exactly.
You're done. Love it. I love it. I had no soup for you in my honorable mentions, by the way.
Number 5.
Number 5 for me, the most famous greeting from Jerry's Uncle Leo. Jerry, hello.
Jerry, hello.
I forgot about that one.
So I like the thing is I told my wife that we're going to do this topic, right? Last weekend on Sunday morning, we came back home from grocery shopping, and my wife, like, we walk in the door and my wife like says out loud, like, "We're home," like in case the kids are awake or whatever. And then Matthew is downstairs in the basement. I think he's playing PlayStation. And he screams up, "Hello?" And then I say, "Jerry, hello." And then my wife looks at me and she's like, "You see, there you go. There's one for your list, you know?"
That's great. That's great. Okay, so next for me, if I hanging out with a friend, haven't seen them in a while, maybe I like something that they're wearing, I will say to them, even if it's not that item of clothing, "I like that jacket."
I like that jacket.
Even if it's like their shirt or their hat or who knows what.
I love it. I love it. Actually, I totally forgot about that one. And I've heard you say that so many times, you know? I've heard you say that to me so many times. I think you've said it to me, you know?
Right. Even if it's, let's say, I don't know, you show me like something new that you bought, like electronic equipment, let's say. And I'll look at it, I'll say, "I like that jacket." Even though it's not a jacket, it's not even clothing.
Love it. This is the best episode.
Number 4.
Number 4 for me. This is something that you say to me many times. You know, you'll call me up and you'll be like, "Skip, can you do me a solid?"
Hey, will you do me a solid?
Well, what kind of solid?
I need you to sit in the car for 2 minutes while it's double parked. I gotta pick up some birds.
It's true. I have asked you that. Yes.
Many times. You've probably done that at least 10 to 15 times, like in my life, at least that it's probably more.
Sure.
So this is famous. This is from the Seinfeld episode called "The Jacket." You know, the same "I like that jacket" episode. And Kramer is asking Elaine to help him out to get, you know, that jacket that his mom had, you know, or his mom's ex-boyfriend, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think the saying like a solid in terms of like being like a favor existed way before Seinfeld. I'm sure it existed way before, but like for us, like that's how it became known. No, like this is where it's from. No,
I never heard it before the show. So if it did exist,
Right.
I never heard it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So the next one, I've made this into a verb, even though it's not really a verb. It's 2 words. And so sometimes if I'm going somewhere with someone and we're bringing something and I bought it and they're holding it, I say to them, "You better not big salad me."
Did you happen to notice that Julie handed the big salad to Elaine?
Yeah, so?
Well, she didn't buy the big salad. I bought the big salad.
Is that a fact?
Yes, it is. She just took credit for my salad.
I love it. It's so good.
So you know what I'm talking about, right? Like they're holding the item. I purchased the item. They're going to get credit for bringing it. I said, "You better not big salad me."
That should be number 1 because you took it to the next level in that you know, like he bought the big salad, but like now you've, like you said, you've turned it into a verb, right? So it's like extra special, you know?
By the way, I don't think we're going to have 4 the same.
Well, at this point, it's mathematically impossible.
I think so.
I'm actually really surprised because I thought that "Do Me a Solid" was going to be in your list. I had a feeling "Jerry, hello" might be on your list. Even "The Best," I thought. Like, that's how I came up with the number 4.
Number 3.
Well, number 3, I think we might have the same. Because we say it like, if we ever made a blooper reel of our podcast, of things that we say off air.
Yes, I know what you're going to say.
things that we say before we start recording, then this would be there. So from the episode The Limo, at one point, George tries to give a quote that he messes up, and he says, "I see things as they are, and I say no. You see things as they are not, and you say, what? What do you say when you see things?"
You see, I see things as they are, and I say no. You see things as they are not, and you you see things. Do you see things as they are? What do you say when you see things?
So just to tell people how this is like a blooper for us, because we turn on our mics, we get ready to record, and then, you know, we check our volume, and you talk into your mic, and you're like, okay, can you hear me? And then you want to check the volume in your ears, in your headphones, and you always tell me, okay, Skip, say something. And then I say, what do you say when you see things? I say it every single time.
It's true, although we didn't do that today because I actually plugged in my headphones earlier and we were just having a normal conversation, so I was able to hear you. So I didn't ask you to say something this time.
I was dying for you to say it today, and when you didn't, I was like actually disappointed, and I just didn't want to say anything about it.
Right.
But did you know it's a quote from Robert Kennedy? The actual quote is, "Some men see things as they are, and say why. I dream of things that never were, and I say, why not?" That's the actual quote.
So I knew there was an actual quote. I didn't know what the actual one was or who said it, but I knew that George was stealing it from something else.
I mean, I only looked it up today, but, you know, whatever.
Okay. So next for me, I use this quite often, maybe not with you, and it's not that there's anything wrong with that.
We're not gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
I mean, it's fine if that's who you are.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have many gay friends.
My father's gay.
And they used it in the context of being gay or straight or whatever. Yeah. I don't necessarily use it for that. I use it for many other things. So it's just an expression that I use.
You know, the Seinfeld episode when the reporter thought they were gay, and that's when this, not that there's anything wrong with that thing came from. Like that, not that there's anything wrong with that as a saying, like it's really like iconic, you know, like it's so well known. And at the time, that episode was really quite groundbreaking, you know, thinking about it in the 90s anyways.
So I like it and I use it all the time.
So are we going to have any the same?
We could. I have 2 left.
Number 2.
So number 2, I mean, I think I say this so often, honestly. Like, so often. Really very nice and good.
What about the body? What kind of body?
Good body. Nice body.
How nice?
Nice.
Just nice?
Pretty nice.
Really good?
Really very nice and good.
Oh, you do say that a lot, actually. Yes. I would have been disappointed if you didn't include it in your list.
Yeah, I mean, I say it so often, it's impossible to keep track of like an individual story, like when it happened, because I say it all the time. But something that goes right, or someone asks me like how things are, I'm like, really very nice and good. Really very nice and good. Anytime you're going to use the word good, it becomes really very nice and good.
Actually, anytime we're texting each other and talking about a potential topic and we finally land on the topic, you always say to me in text, really very nice and good.
It's so true. I even write it in text. So this is from the episode, which was a really funny episode where Elaine and Jerry are trying to fix up George with Elaine's friend. And George is asking Jerry, is she good looking? Yeah, she's really good looking. What about her body? It's really good. But really good, or like really very nice and good? Like it's such a funny like scene, actually.
Is that the scene where he says, if I run my fingers through her hair,
yes,
will I be able to get them out?
Do you want to get him out?
I'd like to be able to get them out.
Exactly. That's the scene. It's so classic.
Okay, so I use this a lot, and I don't necessarily use it for the same reason. In fact, I definitely don't use it for the same reason, but it's, these pretzels are making me thirsty.
And I'm sitting there with Woody, and I turn to him and I go, boy, these pretzels are making me thirsty.
I don't even eat pretzels, but sometimes if I'm eating something else like pistachio nuts or potato chips, I'll say, these pretzels are making me thirsty, even though I'm not eating pretzels.
You've said it at my house several times.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's super funny. I love the way you've like co-opted the sayings for your own use.
That's,
you're really
of course I have to.
You have to. You have to. You have no choice.
Number 1.
All right. So number 1, you've heard me say this a lot of times. It's not a well-known saying at all, but it literally happened this week. It literally happened this week. So that's why I had to make it number 1.
I'm curious.
So as you know, it was like the Jewish New Year. We had Rosh Hashanah this past week. So we were at my in-laws' house, and she had some other guests as well. And my wife's cousin brought a
babka?
Well, a babka. Like, the thing is, the babka is weird because I never knew it was called a babka till Seinfeld. And I think in Canada, or at least in Montreal and Toronto, we don't call it a babka. It's a Danish, isn't it?
Depends what you're referring to. Is it the bread or is it the pastry?
Well, would you call like a round ring of pastry a babka? Like,
I wouldn't.
Is that what it is?
No, I wouldn't. My mom used to make babka, but it wasn't a pastry. It was more like bread. Like sweet
it's like
bread.
Okay. Anyway, so someone brought like a cinnamon pastry and it was on the table. And then like someone at the table asked, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's like a cinnamon Danish." And they're like, "Cinnamon?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's chocolate and there's cinnamon."
I love it.
And my wife looked at me, also knowing that we're about to do the Seinfeld-isms episode, and just cracked up because anytime the word cinnamon is spoken in my house, my wife looks at me and I look at her and we say, "There's chocolate and there's cinnamon." It's like it's said every single time the word cinnamon is said.
What's this one? That cinnamon babka.
Another babka?
There's chocolate and there's cinnamon.
And you know the lady who worked at the bakery, the actress, her name was Catherine Cates. She passed away this year, sadly.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She's actually in 2 episodes playing the same character, the same bakery worker. She's in the cinnamon babka, chocolate babka episode.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also in the marble rye. Like when Jerry has to come buy the marble rye and there's none left. It's the same lady. She's still working at the bakery.
Well, that's good that they were consistent.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay, so number 1 for me, you've mentioned it already, so we have one the same.
Phew.
And it's, what do you say when you see things?
It has to be, right?
But, I mean, again, I don't use it in the same context as the show used it, but, like, I'll just say it. What do you say when you see things? Sometimes when we're trying to check our audio, sometimes when I'm just having a random conversation with somebody. And most of the time, because people that I work with, I don't know if they've ever watched Seinfeld, I'll say it and they'll look at me with a puzzled look on their face.
Right. I think it's a good saying to use in any kind of confusing situation. Like, people are not understanding you, you're not understanding them, maybe like something weird's going on. What do you say when you see things? It's just like an icebreaker.
I like to use it if you're ever parking your car downtown and you're trying to understand the no parking signs because they are very confusing. Sometimes it'll say, you can't park between this time and this time, between this date and this date, but you can park if it's this date and this time. And so I'm looking at it, I'm trying to understand it, and I just say, what do you say when you see things?
Perfect. Love it. Absolutely love it. So I do have a lot of good honorable mentions.
Go ahead.
This one really could have been in my list. It could have made it into the top 7, which is when someone sneezes and you say you're so good looking.
That's a good one, yes.
Another one that we say often is right. But you have to say it with Jerry's tone.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you actually said last episode. Now, I may have edited out of the episode. I don't remember if I did or not. It's when you said 2 men could.
Yeah, I use that all the time.
Yeah. Pulp can move, baby. We're living in a society. God, I love that one. Would, Jerry, would.
That's a very good one.
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that, which you said. I mean, one thing that Jerry said so often is, that's a shame. Serenity Now. No soup for you. And actually one of my favorite Seinfeld-isms, but that's almost impossible to use in everyday life. AstroTurf, the Jews.
That is very difficult to incorporate in everyday life, for sure.
But isn't it one of the funniest parts, honestly, when they're in the limo and George is on the phone and he's just, AstroTurf. I mean, it's hysterical.
So my honorable mentions, you mentioned a bunch of them already. 2 men could, double dip, too fruity.
Too fruity is a good one. Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Giddy Up. That's Kramer.
Yeah.
Serenity Now and Regift.
Actually, regift is like just like double dip. It's like it became a thing.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
Well, there's a lot of those. There's regifter, there's close talker, low talker. Like Seinfeld invented all this, you know?
Seinfeld actually helped me with a lot of my idiosyncrasies.
In what way?
Because a lot of the things that they talk about, I had been doing for a long time and didn't know that it was okay to say them or do them in public, but now I just do.
I love it. Look at you. Look at you. Seinfeld. Helping you out. Gotta love it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be right back with some final thoughts.
You're listening to Unscripted.
Do you know John Hyatt songs?
Maybe you know them from being covered by Roseanne Cash, Three Dog Night, the Neville Brothers, Emmylou Harris, Eric Clapton, B.B. King, Jeff Healey, Bonnie Raitt, or literally hundreds of others.
Maybe you have some of his albums on your shelf, or in your cow-horned Cadillac right now.
I'm Jesse Jackson.
And I'm Sylvan Groff.
And we're going to dive in from A to Z. Join us on the Perfectly Good podcast.
We're going to discuss all of your favorites and uncover some forgotten gems, from Aces Up Your Sleeve to Zero House.
Rate and debate every John Hyatt song on the Perfectly Good podcast. Have a little faith.
Unscripted with Skip and Josh is available wherever you listen to podcasts. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. To interact with the show, send an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. Follow the show on Twitter and go to Facebook to like the show page. And now, some final thoughts from the guys.
So my big final thought was going to be about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, but like I already talked about it, and we don't need to talk about it anymore. I mean, just turn on your internet. It's on the front page of the internet. It's everywhere. Like you can't go anywhere without it. So like we don't need to touch on it some more. I'm just going to tell you about a couple of TV shows that I'm watching. You usually talk about the shows you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know you're on an Apple TV only situation because you have a free trial, so you have to binge everything possible in 90 days.
Correct. So only Apple stuff for 90 days.
Okay, so you are watching
kind of
Ted
like
Lasso?
it's kind of like Lent for 40 days, but here it's Apple stuff for 90 days.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm watching, I mean, I know you're not watching it, but I'm just going to tell people that I am. There's a show on Disney Plus right now called Ahsoka. It's a Star Wars show. It's absolutely incredible. Love it. Can't wait. I mean, I can't wait to watch the next episode. Like as soon as one ends, I wish there was more. And it's going to be really sad on Tuesday because that's the final episode of the season. And the way the story's heading, we're not going to have answers. We're just not going to have answers. It's leading into whatever they're going to do next. And whatever they're going to do next, who knows when the hell that's going to come out because of all the strikes and everything and all the production delays. So I don't know when we're going to see when we're going to get a resolution of this story. But the other show that we started watching yesterday, Only Murders in the Building Season 3. And it's not good.
Okay, well, I was planning to watch it eventually, but I guess I don't have to rush.
We're only 2 episodes in, and I'm like, it's not the same. It's not good. It's just, my wife made the best comment on it. She's like, if this was like a season 1 of a show, right, and we just started watching it without ever watching season 1 and 2, we would hate this. We would not continue watching. And I'm like, well, are you going to continue watching? She's like, well, she goes, because she saw on Instagram when they were making the show this season, there's a scene where Selena Gomez is in a wedding dress. So I'm like, I asked my wife, are we going to keep watching season 3? Or are we going to finish it? Because I don't really feel like finishing it. I don't even care about watching it. And she's like, no, we have to watch it just so I could see why she's wearing a wedding dress. That's the only reason to watch it at this point.
That's hilarious. It's like, when a famous band like U2 comes out with a new album, everyone thinks it's the best album because, they're so popular and stuff. But if some unknown band came out with that exact same album, no one might listen to it.
That is very possible. A lot of artists in any kind of, not just music, acting, whatever, they're famous because of what they did before, not because of what they're doing now, You said like you're on an Apple TV only situation, so I guess and I know you texted me and then you asked me like, what should I watch? And I said, well, you have to watch Ted Lasso. And I know you've watched season 1 before, but like, are you enjoying season 2, 3? Like, how is it so far?
So I'm already halfway through season 3, so almost done. I watch about an episode a day.
That's a lot.
What I noticed is in season 1, I think the episodes were like half an hour, and now the episodes are getting longer and longer every episode. So I prepare myself for a 30-minute episode. Next thing I know, it's 45 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour. And it's just random. Like, they just change the length of the episodes.
Yeah, season 1, it was like you whipped through it because it was so short. Right. And now they're, yeah.
I have to say that the first half of season 2, it was okay. It wasn't anything special to me. The second half of season 2 was better. And now season 3 is, I guess, a little bit more interesting. I mean, I like the show. Don't get me wrong. I haven't seen the end yet. But it's not going to be my favorite show of the year. I can tell you that.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, I mean, I have been keeping my list of like all the shows I've watched and all the movies. And, you know, like I'm prepared for our season ending shows. I'm trying to be prepared, you know, so.
Yes, I'm doing the same. I could do our season ender today. I could do it.
Yeah, but you don't know. A lot of good stuff could happen between, you know, October and December.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, well, Seinfeld-isms was awesome. I really love how you've co-opted some of these sayings for your own personal uses and kind of weird definitions and times of using them. That's pretty amazing. Actually, it tracks with you. I think it fits with your personality.
Thank you.
Really love the episode, and I'll talk to you next time.
Have a great week.